gain over these last days in the encounters and the communications. It's been the demon of self-doubt that has been in the forefront. There's that version of a story, an old story, that might bring some awareness to this. And it's this story about that brahmin in the great land of India who lived a life of poverty. His whole life had been one of struggling just to survive. But he decided to leave his home place and begin wandering the world to see if there were better things to be had on the road. But in his travels, he came to rest under a great tree, and he was about to sit down and partake of the stale bread and rancid cheese that he'd brought along with him, and when he heard a loud voice say, "Don't!" But he was hungry and tired, so he sat down and ate his stale bread and cheese just the same. But after partaking of his food, of course, he had the need to defecate, and he was going to do so under the tree when the voice said loudly to him, "Don't!" So he looked around everywhere to see where the voice was coming from, and the voice said, "Look up." And so he looked up, and there in the tree he saw a demon. And the demon said, "Yes, look at me. I've been in this tree for so long because I was sent here, because in my life, and I was a brahmin too, I was a great musician, but I only played for money, for my personal gain. So the gods have punished me by placing me here." "Listen," said the demon, "listen. Can you hear it? And look over there. Look over there. See that little temple? Well, in that temple, there's a sitar player, and he sings bhajans every day and night out of tune. I can't stand it. It's driving me mad. Please, please, won't you help me? Take me out of here." But you know, the brahmin under the tree, he'd learned a bit of street smarts, and so he said to the demon, "Well, what about me? What's in it for me?" And the demon said, "Well, I have no power. It's been drained out of me by this suffering. But if you take me out of here to another place where it's quiet, I can get some of my powers back, and then I can help you, because I can see that you've led a life of poverty and hardship." So this the brahmin decided to do. He took the demon on his shoulders and he carried him over to a nice, quiet grove, and the demon sighed a great sigh of relief and said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wait just a moment. When my powers come back, I'll be able to assist you." So after some little while, the demon said, "Well, I have an idea. I'll just go to one of the big cities, and I'll enter one of the monarchy over there, and you can come along and you can exercise me. And I'm sure the monarch of that place will give you a very good reward." Well, the Brahmin was a bit skeptical about this, but he was on the road anyway. But one thing, the demon said, one thing you have to remember, that you can only exercise me once. If you try to do it again, there will be dire consequences. So, okay, the demon disappeared after that, and Brahmin got on the road and travelled, but he found himself in the great city of Mysore, and he went to a little tiny inn. With his few rupees he could get a place for the night, but he noticed that everyone was very somber in that place. There was an aura of sadness around the place, so he asked the local coffee shop owner what was going on, and the coffee shop owner said, "Oh yes, it's terrible, it's really terrible. A demon has taken over the princess of the realm, and they have not been able to do anything about it, get rid of him in any way." And the Brahmin thought, "Oh well, yes, it's happening, it really is going." And so he took himself off to the palace and said, "I can exorcise this demon." And so even though he was a bedraggled looking being, he was a Brahmin after all, so they let him in and took him in where the princess was. And of course, immediately the demon, having taken over, the princess recognized. He said, "I've been waiting for you, didn't know when you were going to come. But anyway, I suppose it's my time to leave." So he up and went. And of course, the king gave the Brahmin a very great reward for exorcising the demon out of his daughter. And so the Brahmin was able to set himself up a good life. He was able to build a nice house. He was able to find a wife for himself, and life was very good. But then it so happened that in another realm, there was a story about a demon taking over the princess of the king of that realm. And of course, when it came to the ears of the king of Mysore, he immediately, ingratiating himself with the other monarch, said, "Well, I know someone who can exorcise this demon for you." So he called the Brahmin into him and said, "My friend, the monarch of such and such a place, is having the same problem as we did. The princess has been taken over by a demon, and I want you to go over and exercise." But of course the Brahmin was very reluctant. He was afraid of this demon because he knew that the demon meant what he said when he said that there were going to be dire consequences if he tried to do it again. But, what could he do? This was kind of the rock and the hard place. And so he had to obey the king, didn't he, of his realm. And so he took himself off to the neighboring country, but he was very afraid, so he checked himself into an inn and he waited for a couple of weeks, laboring over his fear of confronting this demon once again, because not knowing what the consequences would be, but they would be dire, no doubt about it at all. But then, of course, came the moment where there really wasn't any choice. He had to bite the bullet, as that saying goes, and go to the palace and front up and so, of course, he was taken into the presence of the princess, who, of course, being occupied by the demon, who recognized him straight away, roared at him and said, "Didn't I tell you that you could only do it once? You cannot come back again and try to exorcise me? Now I'm going to take over you and I'm going to torture you for the rest of your life." Well, the Brahmin, being in that place between the rock and the hard place, so to speak, he just had a thought. And so he fronted the demon. He said, well, if you do that, I'll just go back to that tree beside the temple and we can listen to those bhajans day and night. No, said the demon. And off he went, never to be seen again. So if we look at this demon of self-doubt, and now we have to recognize that most of us are between a rock and a hard place. Even if it's something like, should I take the vaccine or not take the vaccine, bringing it down to something simple like this. This is indeed a rock and a hard place for us. And maybe we've got that demon of self-doubt there. Not just about this in particular, but about the other things that confront us in life. When it comes down to should I or shouldn't I. And it's the self-doubt that keeps us wavering and in fear. What does this story tell us? What is the awareness that arises out of this story that allowed the Brahmin to get the upper hand, so to speak? To get rid of this demon, never to be seen again. What is this story telling us?
The mind's a bastard and you have to let it go.
Yes. It's our demon. That by any name we can call when it comes down to the moments. Self-doubt. What was it about the Brahmin?
He just trusted and went with it and did what he had to do, and then at the right time it
In
just,
the moment
he knew what to do.
the answer came.
Yeah.
Which is what you're telling us all the time. Go back to here, go back to here, go back to here.